Do you love vintage florals, specifically vintage roses? Well, I do, and I'm gonna start this channel by starting this series of painting vintage roses in my own style, and I hope you enjoy it and can paint with me. So let's get started on our first one. Okay, so let's get going. I'm going to paint a vintage rose from this beautiful book, Look to the Rose. I've been really obsessed about this book lately. I've actually had it for a while, but for some reason I decided to pick it up and paint from it. So the one I chose today is called the Derek Nimno. And what I like about it, it's just very simple. Two stalks of roses. I might add another one, I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to try to recreate this beautiful scarlety rose color here. I love how it gradiates from the bits of yellow, light, and then a bit darker. So as I always do, I don't follow it exactly, but I just use it as like a reference, as inspiration when I'm feeling a bit lost. And yeah, let's give that a go. So I'm gonna show you my setup. I'm just gonna pull out into a bit of a longer shot here. Excuse the mess that you see at the side. All right, so what do I have? I have my book here on a little book stand, and it's really useful for me to just prop up my book or even my iPad when I'm using it. I've got my 2 jars of water here. I use 2 because I don't have a method of clean and then dirty or warm colors or cool colors. I just use until one gets incredibly dirty and then I move to the other one. It just saves me a trip to the sink. I've got here my spray bottle that I use to activate my paints. All my paints are tube paints of a ton of different brands that I've accumulated over the years that I've just put in this 42 well Shinhan palette. I can show you the brand of it in a bit, but I've just sprayed it down, so not advisable to close it. I've got a little neon palette here as well. I'm just going to activate. This one is Lumi. Not sure if I'm going to use it exactly, but just nice to have it handy. As for paper, today I am going for my Arches paper. I have a couple of these pads that I bought overseas where it was cheaper, so please feel free to use any kind of watercolor paper you have, but if possible, go for 100% cotton, as that will give you the best results of watercolor. All right, and as for brushes today, just gonna pull that back in. As for brushes today, I am going to go for my favorite brush to use at the moment, which is a flat brush. This one's by Princeton Heritage, 3/4 inch. I have a 1 inch one as well when I want to work on larger scale, but the 3/4 inch is what I used to like to go for. For details, I will go for a smaller 1/2 inch flat and also a little round one here, which is a size 8 silver black velvet. I sometimes also go for a liner brush. This is a size 1. This one, I can't remember, it's Art Basics is the brand, but you can find this in any other brand. And basically this gives you really nice, long, thin strokes for details at the end. So those are my brushes, my paper, my paint, water, reference book. Let's get going. All right, so let's start. Okay, blank page is always the scariest, especially when you're using good quality, expensive paper. But you know, let's just do it. Let's just go for it. I am gonna wet my brush and straight away go into this scarlet color, and I have Scarlet Lake. So Scarlet Lake is like an orangey red. And I'm going to start with that first big flower here. Putting down the first few strokes with a heavily pigmented brush. Then I'm gonna rinse off all that pigment. I know it seems a bit crazy and wasteful, but it's okay. A little paint goes a long way with watercolor. And I'm using with mostly water, I'm just gonna pull down that first petal that I see, which is quite transparent. Okay, go in again with with a nice thick, heavy pigmented brush, and I'm gonna pull out the other petal. I'm gonna now dip into a bit of gamboge, which is like a really warm yellow. Oh, love that. Pulling that out. And you see, the thing about this flat brush, it creates very easily these ability to get a more unique shape. Shout out to my artist friend and mentor. I consider her a mentor. She might not really accept me as a mentee, but Jillian from Crafty Fox, she introduced this flat brush sort of like way of painting in one of the workshops I took from her, and I just love it. I just cannot go back to a round. I mean, I can, but it's so much more enjoyable. So as you can see, I'm using water pigment to create the whole flower, using the edges of my brush as well as the belly and even the corner of the brush. And you can always go back to fix stuff, okay, in watercolor. So look at the shape, stand back, look at the shape. Going in with a bit more yellow here, I'm gonna just drop in a bit of cadmium yellow, lemon yellow, whatever yellow you like. And then if you feel like it's gone too watery, you can dry the brush and then just lift a bit of color out. All right, am I happy with this rose? I might go in later with a bit of more little strokes here and there, but I think I'm quite happy with this rose now. Now this rose, these the thing about vintage roses is that it's quite like foliage heavy, which I love. So yes, there will be 2 flowers here, but we're going to concentrate on the leaves and the stalks, okay? So the other bloom, in the reference photo, it's up here, but I'm actually going to do it down here because I realized I didn't give it too much room, but it's fine, and it's great to just improvise as you go, okay? So creating that smaller bloom here, using the same hues, the Scarlet Lake. By the way, Crafty Fox Jillian has her own YouTube channel now. You can go check it out, where she very generously shows her paintings in real time, I mean. Okay, I like that. I am realizing now I just want a little bit of a darker, shadowy type. So I'm gonna grab some dragon's blood. And while this guy is still wet here, just going into some areas where you might experience a bit of darker shadows. And then for this fella here as well, I like that. And then maybe a little bit more yellow just at the base. Okay, this lemon yellow that I have from Shinhan, I think, it's a bit opaque. So actually not the best for blending, but yeah. Just dabs of yellow, create interest. And okay, while everything is still wet, I want to pull some stems. So I'm gonna grab my smaller flat brush. This is the 1/2 inch. Okay, still staying with a flat. Gonna grab some burnt umber, mix it up with a bit of sap green. burnt umber, sap green. And you just play with the hue that you like, okay? I'm just gonna pull this lovely stem using the edge or the side of this brush. And you notice that it's not straight, which is fine because stems of roses are very forgiving. They're actually kind of bit, you know, it's got these little sections of it sometimes where the thorns stick out. And then for like the leaves, the thinner stems of the leaves, just gonna pull up using my small round. Sorry if I went a bit too fast and you are painting with me. And then with this small round, you can also just pull out some thorns. Thorny thorns. All right, so just be brave and pull out a couple of branches. Going back to my bigger 3/4 inch flat. Excuse me if I feel a bit tongue-tied at moments. This is one of my first videos. I've done a few already that I've quite failed. So it's gonna take me a while to feel, to talk and paint. I'm not used to that yet. All right, so to come out, to do a leaf, what I'm gonna do is start with the corner of this brush and then just drag it down and end at this corner as well. Corner. And I'm using a bit of sap green, a bit of burnt umber. And going in, cleaning my brush for that lighter leaf on this side. So for the leaves, what I tend to like to do is just play around with different greens. Add a bit of blue, add a bit of, even add a bit of Scarlet Lake. That's what I actually like doing to create a bit of color harmony. One more beautiful leaf here. And you notice that with roses, there tends to be this formula for leaves. There's like a stem that comes out, one leaf on either side and one leaf in the middle. And for longer ones, you can have a couple more. All right, so keep going. With this one, maybe just a bigger dramatic leaf. Smaller one up here. And maybe a lighter one. So playing with the hue, playing with the value. I like to drop a bit of brown sometimes. Alright, there's a really big empty space here, which makes me feel like I should just add another little bud. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually start from the stem this time. So there's no formula, that you have to follow with roses. Sometimes you just gotta go with the flow and see what works. So just gonna extend the stem up. And for this one, I'm just gonna have a little bit more of those little buddy kind of effect. Grab the scarlet and just gently, also gently touch the green so they might bleed into one another. Nothing too dramatic. There you go, some delicateness there. Okay, and then right now, honestly, using your reference or not, just begin to play with creating more leaves in the background. Using my smaller square now for a bit of leaf action here. There is an effect that artists use for landscapes, where they put cooler color things further away and warmer color items closer. So in this case, what we could do is we could add some leaves in the background that are more bluish. Okay, and the artist here is doing that same thing. So just give you an example. Let's extend a little branch out there where I've added some blue to my green, giving it the sense that it's further away. Alright, I feel like I want to have one huge, nice big leaf down here. So I'm going to swap my brush again. I'm going to grab a bit darker green. So I have this one called shadow green, or perennial green, and some brands call it perennial green. I'm going to add a bit of green gold into that as well to give it a bit of drama. So I'm going to see. I don't know if this is going to work, but there. It did. Always does. Somehow. Alright, feels a bit of emptiness up here as well, so I'm gonna do that very, very light. Very, very light. Slightly more bluish. Leaf happening. Always have a green gold in your arsenal of greens. I'll do another video one day just to talk about all the different greens we can use to create our painting. Alright, so now we're just gonna leave it to dry and then we can do a bit of layering. Alright, so you gotta make sure that it's pretty dry before we do the next layer. Otherwise, you can get some really nasty unwanted blooms. So hair dryer or air dry, work on another painting and come back, up to you. But what I like to do is mainly just really wait for it to get nice and dry before we get going. Okay, now we're gonna start layering or adding details, as some people call it, once this is dry. Okay, it's kind of dry, pretty dry, so let's go for it. I'm a bit impatient. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna get a bit of that Scarlet Lake, nice and thick. And you can just use this as the darker value to get that shadows. Or you could just go in maybe with a bit of burnt umber to just create a bit more of a shadowy. Or even some green, some sap green, which is the complementary color. All right, let's go for it. How do I start? Well, looking at the reference, I like to just go around the edges of some of the petals. That's one way to just get a bit of interest, dimension. So a lot of it is just playing and going by feel and experimenting with what works. And then I like to go and grab that yellow again. And oh, look at that, it's gorgeous. So that opaque yellow I told you about that I had, now this is where it comes really lovely. Create a bit of that layering effect. A bit of brightness to the flower. Okay. Just for fun, I like sometimes to go in for a cool red. So here I have quinacridone rose, or permanent rose. This one is Rembrandt. And sometimes I just like to pop a little bit of fun pinky hues into the rose. All right. let's go to this one here. Bit of that Scarlet Lake. I decided I didn't really like adding that brown. Made it all a bit muddy, but that's cool. That is cool. And then where's my yellow? Bring my yellow back down here. A bit here. All right. And this last one here, we don't need too much. This is just a little bud. Just a little bud. So you can pick a couple of colors to do your layering. You can just pick one. You can also do it like in different kind of values. Some people like glazing, which is like adding another sort of like, see, like not so thick a value, or not. So you do you. Just showing you how I am layering these at this moment. Another fun thing to do is to grab the rigger, the liner brush, and grab whatever pigment you like to create some veins, pulling some veins out into the petals. And you don't have to do it for all the petals, otherwise it looks a bit silly, but just for a couple. And sometimes it's fun to also just put in a crazy shocking color that's totally not in the palette, like, I don't know, this blue maybe. Let's see how that works. And then straight away you get something that is different, unexpected, fun. Right. Bit of this, I'm not sure what blue this is, I can't remember now. Cobolt Blue, yeah. There we have it. The flowers themselves, the blossoms, I think they're great. If you want to, you can leave these leaves as they are. I like to do a bit of fun layering with the leaves. So look at how each leaf already has its own sort of gradient color, so we don't need to do too much actually. I like to get my really dark hue of green, whether it's grabbing the shadow green or just mixing with a bit of purple with the sap green, and just go in there and just introducing these gentle flowy lines, some thicker, some thinner, not on every leaf. You can also go in with your rigger brush and create veins. Accentuate those stems. I'm really liking how it's turning out. Step back, take a breath, look at your painting. What do you think it needs more of? Or maybe you should just stop. And for this, I'm feeling, actually, I was gonna say I'm feeling like stopping, but I won't. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some splatters because I'm actually quite inspired by that little cobalt blue that I added. So I'm gonna just get my brush into the cobalt. I'm using the, you can use any brush really, but I'm using the 3/4 flat. And let's just do a bit of splattering. Just for the hell of it. And maybe some of that purple. quinacridone rose or perm rose. There we go. Not sure if that worked, but it is what it is now. All right, so I decided actually the splatters were really weird. So what I did was what I'm gonna do is I'm spraying some water around it, and I'm going to create a background. Excuse my dog. What I mean is that I'm gonna create a background is I'm just gonna go over the splatter with a wet, damp brush, and that will create some kind of a fun, dreamy background. Just going over the flowers, going over, sorry, not over, but around my whole painting. And you know what? This can be like, oh my God, Crystal, what are you doing? This is going to be a horrible mess, but actually, it's kind of fun. You're creating a nice, soft, moody background, which is different, which is gradient, touching a bit of your original flower if you need to. And as you can see, you can't see this, but I'm not even using clean water, just using my muddy water. I used to be terrified of painting backgrounds, and then you just kind of do it, and then you realize, oh, actually, if you use the correct supplies, the correct paper, 9 out of 10 times, the results are actually quite nice. And then when you get those results, you get more confident the next time an opportunity like this presents itself for you to add a background in. All right, and you don't have to be super careful, leaving like no white space. Just get the brush in there. Blur out the edges. It's fine. Play, play. Oh, is it looking like a hot mess? Perhaps. Or is it expressive art? You decide. All right, I'm gonna leave it at that, and hope you enjoyed watching and painting along. Here it is. I hope you enjoyed painting with me. I really actually like it a lot now. Didn't think that it was gonna work out with all that splatter and the background, and you know, that really shows how you can have a plan for a painting, but it might not turn out how you planned it to be, and it might be even more fabulous afterwards. So yeah, go ahead and hope you try it out. If you like my channel, please subscribe, please like, follow me on Instagram. I'm at Crystal Tan Art, and I hope to see you again soon.